A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Mary Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so lovely to see you, and I'm so pleased to be able to welcome back Anne Lovatt. Anne, it's lovely to see you.
Hi Mary, it's lovely to be here. Thanks for asking me.
And I'm really excited today because you've brought quite a difficult subject with you. We're going to talk about psoriasis.
Yes, we are indeed, and it is a very deep-rooted and quite distressing condition. There's nothing worse, I think, for many people when their skin, it's what everybody sees, isn't it? So if it's not feeling very good and nasty, it's horrible for people, really horrible to live with, and people do live with it, and often, for many years before they hopefully come to see a homeopath, and we can really help to moderate things.
It's really important to say that, because you're quite right. Most of the people I have seen with psoriasis have been suffering for years, and it might just be having worse flares at the moment. So first of all, can you explain a little bit about what psoriasis is?
Well, psoriasis is an autoimmune condition. It's driven by the immune condition attacking itself. So the skin is turning over a huge number of cells. They're piling up on the skin. That's exactly what's happening. And it's like a chain reaction of inflammation. And it's very, very deep rooted. People get really stuck. And we see those scaly patches everywhere, but there's a lot more going on underneath the surface. And scientists are beginning to understand a bit more about it. And a lot of it is genetic. I'd say about 60 to 90% of people, they have psoriasis in their family. And so the genetic influence is very, very, very strong. Mm-hmm. But, even we always, as homeopaths, look at the family history. We look at why people have what they have when they come to see us, whatever it is. And even though they have those weaknesses and susceptibilities in their genetic structure, there are always going to be triggers. Why? It's the biggest question I think I ask in homeopathy, in any disease, is why now?
Yeah.
And what started it all off? Why did you suddenly get ill? You very rarely hear of babies being born covered in psoriasis, do you? But sometimes it does develop quite early.
Yes.
So it's that moment. There's a pivotal moment to why people fall into that susceptibility. And that can be a respiratory, a heart susceptibility. It can be any sort of susceptibility, a weakness that comes right down through generations of families. It could be a trauma susceptibility. It could be that there's been, our parents fought through wars, didn't they? They saw terrible things. These things really do get embedded in the psyche and in the genetic code. I strongly see that. And so when people fall ill at any age, there's always a reason. And I think the most important job we do as homeopaths is to give people a safe space to explore that. Why did you fall ill when you did?
Yes.
And most often, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint that, but most often people come up with oh gosh, do you know what was going on when I first got this was, I don't know, my mother died, or
yes.
we had a terrible accident, or there was some shock or surgery. And actually, there are known triggers in psoriasis, and they're very, very well documented. Infections can be a trigger. So you can get strep throat can sometimes be a trigger. And homeopathy, of course, is fantastic because we can use nosodes. We can use the strep nosode. And that's something I've done in psoriasis patients, use the nosodes. So if you have an infection, so that could be anything from something as serious as HIV to just a really sore throat, that can trigger a psoriasis. Also, skin injuries. So I had a case recently of a man who cut his shin on a piece of coral, and that was the first patch of psoriasis he developed was on that patch of skin, which I found really fascinating. And of course, I immediately gave him red coral, Corallum rubrum, as my first remedy. And I think I probably gave it too soon. It didn't do too much, but the connection is there. That if you've the injury was the significant trigger for him. So that could be sunburn, it could be tattoos, it could be a surgical incision, and so new patches can appear exactly where the skin was injured. And so as a homeopath, we're looking at why that happens. Why does the injury to the skin trigger the disease? And we're looking for always for the root cause. And so that's just as a trigger that I've certainly come across in practice. Stress, an enormous trigger. And of course, homeopathy is the only therapy, I think the only therapy that we have that really combines mind and body. That mind-body connection is so strong in the way we're trained and how we observe things. The holistic view of a homeopath is second to none. So when we're looking at people with psoriasis and it comes down to a stressful thing that's kicked off either a flare-up or the initial bout, that's something we really get deeply into.
So when we look at both symptoms, we're asking questions, we're asking a lot of information about what was happening before, and also, yes, whether that was a physical or an emotional, because it could have been either. But also then, are you looking at the way that it is presenting, where it is presenting, or are there many differentiations between the actual skin itself?
Yeah, I mean, always where the first lesion appears is important, and how it spreads, and that always leads us to specific remedies. So natromule, for example, most often the psoriasis will be around the scalp, maybe behind the ears, and so each remedy will have its own little picture, the little secrets that we're spotting, and as we do our detective work in the case taking, where all these things are really important. And it might be that it's not, it's a combination of all those factors. We're pulling everything together. So this is why home prescribing is really, really, really difficult for something like psoriasis and most chronic cases, because people tend to pounce on one symptom. They'll go, oh, it's around the hair, so it must be natromule. No, there's only one small bit of the puzzle, and it's a complicated picture. So we're not just looking at the location on the body, or just at the stress, or just at, did it start with an infection, or why did we get that infection in the first place? It's that there are so many other things to take into consider, and even medications can be a really big trigger.
Okay.
So if you take a drug. And again, the wonderful thing for a homeopath is that we can detox, we can give remedies that help to take away those maybe side effects. Actually, people say side effects. I'm telling my patients there's no such thing as a side effect in medicine. There's just effects. You take a drug, it affects the whole being. The whole being, every part of you. There's no such thing as a side effect. It's just you have to take into account the effect of the medicine on the whole body. And unfortunately, modern medicine, brilliant as it is in so many ways and life-saving in so many ways, and I'm absolutely not, huge fan of everything that can be done. It's just a different philosophical approach.
Yes.
But it's a bit of a sledgehammer, really. Sometimes, they're looking at resolving what is a holistic issue with just one chemical change in the body, but that changes so much. Well, they're trying to target one thing specifically, but it often just changes everything in the body. And so, there's a lot of sensitivity to medications too. So the fact that we can look at that as part of our case and maybe give a run of remedies that help to detox, that often peels away another layer, and then people are better able to talk about what's really going on underneath. Even if there's a sensitivity to drugs, it's still, I would still say, why is there that sensitivity to drugs? We're going back and back and back, we're going deeper and deeper into what the real root cause is, and that can take time.
Yeah.
And I've always tell my psoriasis patients, be patient, be really, really patient. You might have had this skin lesion for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, to expect a homeopath to deal with it in 6 weeks, impossible. I would say it would probably take 20 months. It's a long, slow process.
Because, of course, what we're trying to do is help the body learn a different way to react. But also, as you've said, it's not just about treating the symptom, the physical symptom. It's about addressing the cause and that original reaction to a trauma or reaction to something that's happened. And that might be physical and emotional as well. In fact, usually most physical symptoms would come from an emotional event, first of all.
Yeah.
So, and you said there that it's a different way, really, of looking at it. It's a different way of looking at the whole body and how the body is presenting symptoms. Yeah,
exactly. And another trigger to talk about is lifestyle stuff.
Okay.
You mentioned before we came on the chat about maintaining causes and life. That's again something that we just do as a matter of course in a homeopathic consultation, isn't it? We talk about life. We look at people's habits, and if they're heavy smokers or there's a lot of obesity or other conditions going on, we have to take all of that into account as well. So we're looking not just to give homeopathic remedies, but to also reflect a little bit to people. People often come to see a homeopath when they've tried everything else. Mm-hmm. Most people with long-term psoriasis will have had a lot of steroid medication. They will have gotten used to the fact that they have had this condition for a very, very long time. And we're there to often as the very last resort. Go and see a homeopath because nothing else has helped. And it's often a really important time. Why did they decide to do that in the first place? It's a pivotal moment often when people go to a homeopath, and we've tried absolutely everything. Now try this, But it's also an important moment to recognise that this person actually wants to help themselves. Yeah. And part of educating people about homeopathy is that it's the body that does the healing. All right, the remedies might give the impetus, but really we want to get away from the conventional philosophy that you give a drug and you're fixed. That's not how it works. It's about understanding ourselves, understanding why we're ill. And I really like to reflect back to my patients. We look at the notes we make and we see patterns emerging, and sometimes I'll just say, do you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing this, this, and this, and someone will maybe go, oh, I've never thought of it like that. Or I've never made those connections, and those are healing connections. So it's just such an amazing privilege to be the person who can join those dots. I think when someone comes with a really chronic condition, it takes patience and understanding, and it takes patience with yourself and understanding of yourself. It's a true journey of healing, and it's not a quick fix like taking a drug. You take that steroid, you slap that steroid cream on, and wow, instant result. But it's only on the surface.
Yeah.
And actually, unfortunately, steroids on the surface of the skin will ultimately damage the deeper epidermis, and a steroid only lasts for so long, and then you need a stronger one and a stronger one. So in conventional medicine, you're often in a cycle, even though that there are lots of promising new treatments always, and that there's great research going on everywhere. But I think when people understand why they're ill, because it is an illness, then that's also an interesting point. Is it an illness? It's not always an illness for some. Some people have psoriasis all their lives and they don't care. It's fine.
Yes.
I have a very elderly. I have an elderly patient with a patch behind her neck. She never talks about it. It's just there. She's fine. It's just one of those things. So she's not actually ill. She's not suffering. It's just part of who she is.
Yes.
And this particular patient, very, very, very traumatic marriage, was married to an alcoholic, and a lot of suppression. Mm-hmm. I can't really get her to tell me about just how painful it was when she went through all of what she went through with. I won't go into the whole case, but she's not ready to tell me. She's in her late 80s. She will never be ready to tell me.
No.
And she lives with this patch of psoriasis. And it's almost like she's developed a thick skin.
Yes.
And that's how I think about psoriasis. People develop a thick skin because they can't allow difficult emotions to touch them deeply because it's too painful. It's too much.
That really brings the subject, doesn't it, of actually having an unprejudiced observer ask questions that you wouldn't ever be able to ask yourself. And that's why a homeopathic journey effectively is about going back through and as you said, joining those dots with what has happened, and perhaps having that reflection from the things that you say, how somebody else would see it, in order to find the remedy that's going to help you right now on this, where you are right now as you go through this journey. And you've quite rightly said that it is a long journey. It's not going to happen overnight. You've had things that have built up this thick skin for a very long period.
And sometimes the remedy will just, it's a bit like I think of it as some people talk about it as an onion with layers. I like to think of it as a flower with petals opening, and as each of the outer petals open and fall, we see something new in the middle, and we're looking to get to that beautiful stamen right at the very centre. But sometimes we really can't with psoriasis patients. So I think sometimes there's really deep ancestral trauma. I think the genetic links are so strong, and if we can get people to, like my 86-year-old patient, to feel that it doesn't matter anymore, that's also that's where she's in her happy place. She's feeling good about herself and she's fine. Some people find it's so unsightly and so difficult that they just have to do something about it, and so everybody's different. That's the exciting thing about homeopathy, is you can't say, well, this is the remedy for psoriasis because that's the one that works. There are I wouldn't say there's hundreds, but there probably are actually hundreds of remedies that will help someone, because we're helping to peel those outer layers away and enable a new picture to be shown. So sometimes we talk about constitutional remedies, and I sometimes wonder, is there really such a thing as a constitutional remedy overall? Some people come and say, I'm a pulsatilla, or I'm a phosphorus, and I often think, well, you might be right at this moment, but
you might have been 10 years ago. Yes.
In a few months' time, you might be something slightly different, probably related. So the remedies are all related. We know that. And so it can be a process of going through relevant remedies. And sometimes you find yourself prescribing for something purely emotional. And so maybe a Staphysagria prescription might be given to someone with psoriasis because they have such deeply suppressed anger. And so the biggest thing in that case might be that the anger is the trigger. Maybe they got their psoriasis after feeling insulted by someone and being so furious and so unable to act that they suppressed it, and then the skin began to be the thickening, hardening shell for them. They're sort of hiding behind it. And it's the same. We're always looking for these clues as to what happened and how someone felt. It's not so much the story of what happened. It's how did you feel? How do you feel when someone said that to you? And if the patient says, well, I felt humiliated, I felt insulted, and I felt hopeless, unable to do anything, then you're immediately drawn to Staphysagria. If they say, I felt so disappointed and sad, and like that relationship was never going to be the same for me, then I'm immediately going to go to Nature Mule, because that remedy is much more about relationships and about grief and about loss. And again, that might just peel away a layer. Oops, sorry, jogging my computer. I'll keep my hands to myself. It's all about an unfolding process where we try to get to the heart of what the issue is. And
I love the idea of the flower and the petals unfolding and then falling off, because that indicates more as well that you might actually be going back through the years of health, and each of those might be a different emotion or reaction depending on how you were and how you were coping with life at that time.
Yeah. And coping is such a brilliant word to use, because everybody has to find a way, don't they, to cope. And often when we're children and we're maybe a patient might come who's had a difficult childhood, they're finding it really hard, maybe listening to parental arguing going on all the time, or anything that children are so sensitive emotionally, and so they have to find a way to cope. They have to find a way to shut that out, and some children will end up feeling it's their fault. Some children might be suppressing anger. There's a lot of suppression goes on with children to cope, and strategies of how they best feel they're able to be loved, because that's all any child wants, isn't it? Is to be loved.
Yes.
And so they'll do anything. People will do anything to make sure that they're loved. And if that means suppressing all feelings altogether, they'll do that because they think that's what's required in order for their parents to love them. So emotional coping strategies come in very, very, very early in life. And I do find even in elderly psoriasis patients that sometimes going back to childhood is incredibly revealing and sometimes very difficult. So we're going into difficult emotional territory often, not always.
Yes. And I have had experience with one client where I couldn't really find any emotional trauma themselves. And it occurred to me at one point to ask about family trauma before them. And it worked out that, his father was actually in Hiroshima, when the nuclear bomb went off. And so then understanding his childhood with his father's emotions and able to address it from that direction gave a completely different overview.
Wow. I've been to Hiroshima several times. It's an overwhelming experience, and it's a beautiful open park area. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's unspeakable what was done.
Yeah.
It's unspeakable. But yeah, how can we forget that and forget the 50 million who died in the Second World War? It's absolutely horrendous and ingrained in generations, I think.
Exactly. That psyche of it being part, it just makes sense that you're holding it in every cell in your body, doesn't it? And it, yes, just understanding that actually this trauma, this happening, this change could have happened at any stage.
Yeah. I think psoriasis is so deeply held. And I've seen a lot of men with it who, and men are often not that willing to give you an emotional sort of
Yes.
background.
Yes.
I mean, women are more used to bearing their souls, I suppose, for one reason or another. But with men, they come more. These are the facts. This is what's happened, and can you give me something to get rid of it? Yeah, that's. And yes, I've had male patients who said, "Well, there isn't anything emotional. Of course, there isn't. I don't have anything. It sort of goes against the whole male psyche, unfortunately. And more and more, I think we're allowing men to show their emotions, but it is really ingrained in our culture that men don't show their emotions, and I see a lot more men than women with psoriasis, and I think that's part of it is that we do hold all that stuff in, and sometimes what do you do when it's impossible for someone to recognize? Well, so again, you just have to very carefully, you have to support them, you have to realize that they've come to you for help after probably going to hundreds of other people for help through their lives. And we have to respect that the patient needs support. And when they ask for support in a particular area, sometimes it can be irritating for them if we go, well, let's find the emotional cause. That's not always helpful. So you have to go very gently and very supportively. So putting the needs of the patient very, very much first. So if they say, this psoriasis drives me crazy. Every time I scratch it, it's burning, like it's just horrendous. Then that's where we have to put our first homeopathic support, because we have to get people comfortable. We have to get people feeling safe, people feeling that there is something we can do. So although we've just talked for 20 minutes about the emotional cause, it's actually not always the way in to treatment, and getting people comfortable with difficult symptoms, because they can be horrendous. You might have an Arsenic amalgam patient who's, every time they scratch, it's like a fire. It's like that burns the skin. It's awful. So we would be failing in our duty as therapists if we didn't make that our number one issue to really help to calm. And like with my very elderly patient, I think once the skin is calm, sometimes people don't mind about living with it. So it's that brings us back to that question of what is it to be healthy? And to be healthy might be that you have psoriasis, but everything else in your life is beautifully in balance. And who are we to say that you're not healthy if you feel good and your energy is good? And that brings me quite nicely to how do we measure it? We measure people's energy and their vital force, their well-being, in a consultation. We're looking to lift and support people in a very holistic way. Yeah.
And where the energy is, of course, is what we need to be concentrating on. But let's just touch for a moment on actually measurement, and what we're classing as being better. I mean, physical evidence or evidence of homeopathy, and the use for psoriasis.
Yeah. Well, there are two measurements, and there is a lot of documented research in homeopathy, which is fantastic. And if anybody's really interested in homeopathic research, go to the Homeopathic Research Institute online, have a look at the work they're doing. It's founded by physicists, homeopaths. Wonderful. And it's amazing what they're doing. So well, as a non-research homeopath, I just look at photographic. I take photographs of people's lesions, and I look at the size. So we look at a reduction in size, and we look at. Well, I always ask people about their energy, and I might ask them how their energy is out of 10. So I will take a out of 10 sort of look at energy and emotion. And the physical symptoms, how distressing is it? But in the homeopathic research, they use something called PASI, PASI, which is the Psoriasis Area and Severity Index. It's very complex. It looks at redness, thickness of the plaques, scaling, and how much of the body is affected. And each of those is scored. I'll put all this information into a blog, which will be attached to this podcast, and so people can look at. This is very detailed. The way that, like the redness, for example, would be scored from 0 to 4. You would look at different parts of the body. The scaling, which is called desquamation, again, how much of the body is affected and where on the body. What the numbers are, and the numbers are all added up to 72 for some reason. And so if someone starts with a PASI score of, say, 22, it means that they've got moderate to severe psoriasis. If after treatment their PASI drops to 2 or 3, that's a major clinical improvement.
Yes.
And so, I mean, researchers love PASI because it's clear, consistent, and in the homeopathy trials, they also use something called MONARCH as another measurement. So the MONARCH score is something that tells us, did the homeopathic remedy actually cause improvement, or was it something else? So it works like a checklist, really. Did the symptoms improve straight after the remedy was given? Did the improvement match the known effects of the remedy? Did the symptoms return if the remedy wore off and improve again if it was repeated? Were other treatments ruled out? And was the improvement strong and specific, not just general? So the higher the score, that it's the remedy and not just coincidence, is really important to know. And when you see a MONARCH score after a clinical trial, which is over 10, then it's really, really good. And Vitulkas in 2019 did an individualized classical homeopathy trial, and the MONARCH score was very high on that. Many of the cases have had really, the ones I've been looking at, I did a lot of research into cases before coming on here, and I won't go into details of all that because there isn't really enough time, but these two methods of measurements, PASI and MONARCH, really give us some really clear, structured evidence and a way of scoring. But in clinic, it's also important that every homeopath has their own method of looking at how the skin resolves. And I think we all do that, even when we're treating eczema or any other condition. So, yeah, there is evidence out there, and the key outcomes are really very, very positive for homeopathy. And again, in the blogs, I'll give references, and you can look up those cases. There's been many cases where patients have gone into remission, and it's just wonderful. And I think you said to me you had a case where someone went into remission and then came back out of it. What do you do then? And so I would say probably the first thing you do is you repeat, and that's as far as doing research, that's almost the clinical first step. But you have to repeat the original remedy and see what happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good that we have got this evidence and we have got this bank of information that does support homeopathy, because quite often that is forgotten or put to one side. So we will put the links to that so that people can go and do their own research out there with the information.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anne, for coming in today and for running through this, because it's such a fascinating topic, and of course one that we could talk about for hours and hours. But
all day. even just we touched on the miasms, like that could be a whole another podcast. But we have so many incredibly important tools as homeopaths to support patients with psoriasis. Yeah, it's huge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and talking to us. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so lovely to have you here. And if you've really enjoyed this conversation, then please click on the links above here, because you'll definitely like these other episodes. It's right here on the screen. Just click and I'll meet you there.